Welcome to the Vortex Nation podcast, brought to you by lovers of hunting, shooting, public lands, the Second Amendment, and good food. Vortex Nation podcast listeners, how's it going? The hopefully buttery tones today are not brought to you by MC Ryan. So if it sounds like crap, that's courtesy of MC Jim. I apologize if that's the case. Anyway, we're here on the road, and of course, when we're on the road, we get to talk to cool people that meet up with us on the road when we're in their neck of the woods or we're in a mutual neck of the woods. And we have Dillen Easly here and Garrett Grover from Rise Armament. Dillen Easly uses Rise Armament.
Yes.
But you are with a number of different things. You shoot competitively.
Several different companies. So.
Both of you guys are new to the podcast for us here, so that'll be good for people to get a little intro on you and who you are. We'll let you do that in a second. Of course, you got Jimmy and Mark here as usual, but we are going to talk about today bolt guns versus gas guns, in particular for long range shooting, and maybe dispel a couple of myths, a couple of misconceptions out there, perhaps, or just shed some new light on a different type of platform than you may be used to. But like we said, let's let these guys introduce themselves. What's alphabetical order? Dylan, you would go first in that case.
So I'm Dylan. I'm a chiropractor in Kansas City. Been shooting for Vortex as a shooter since I think 2015, and Rise from right around the same timeline. Shoot for several other companies, Warren Scope Mounts and Phoenix Trinity, and several other great companies that have been supporters for me. So far, been having a lot of fun with this, and it's been kind of an adventure. And now I get to play in this game.
Yeah,
awesome.
You've gotten a little bit of everything going because you were doing 3-gun for a long time, and then you started getting into some PRS stuff, if I'm not mistaken,
right?
I've
been playing in there lately. So, it's been interesting. It's changed platforms a little bit, changed the size of the scope, the amount of magnification, the size of the targets, the distance. Everything kind of comes into play that, in 3-gun we're used to 4 MOA target, and then all of a sudden somebody's going to throw out a half MOA target. Like, okay, well, let's see if you can hit that. And I'm like, well, This isn't what I'm used to, but we're going to give it a shot, and so it's been a lot of fun. It's kind of a learning experience, though.
Right. Yeah, I remember when we went out to the Shooter Source match in Texas last year, and you were out before the match shooting a bolt gun, and I was like, "Who the heck is that?"
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I was like, "It's Dylan," and I said, "Well, he's not shooting an AR really fast. What the heck's going on here?"
Yeah.
You're shooting like a 6.5 Creedmoor, 1,000 yards or something like that.
I had a brand new bolt gun, so
that's right.
I mean, you go to a range that has 1,400 yards available, toss it in the car.
Yeah.
Throw a case of ammo in. Let's see if we can have a chance to go have some fun.
Yeah. So. And then you've also been doing the tactical games as of late, too.
Tactical games was fun. It was physically more demanding than anything I've ever done. I've done football and baseball 2-a-days, working out till you throw up, and all of that stuff, and then go to the tactical games, and it's different. Those guys work out differently.
Give us a brief, synopsis of the tactical games.
So their motto is... no days off. So a lot of these guys are special forces groups, military, SWAT officers, stuff like that. And then they tried to kind of mix CrossFit and shooting, if you will.
Okay.
So you're going to go through and give you an idea of like our first stage. It took me 6 minutes. So 6 minutes of constant shooting and physical activity. 55, 60-pound sandbag. Pick it up, throw it over your shoulder, take off running 80 to 100 yards, dump it, do a rope climb up 18 feet, come down, run up to the top of the berm, then you're going to shoot at 50 yards. And then, by the way, you have a plate carrier, or what a lot of people refer to as a bulletproof vest, and you have to have a minimum of 15 pounds in that plate carrier. And then you've got loaded mags on you, you've got a pistol holstered, you've got a rifle slung, and you have to go up the rope with all that. Whew. So then after you shoot, you go down, you pick the sandbag up again, run up, dump it into a preset area. Then you have to run in, go through a shoot house, come out the other side of the shoot house, pick that back up, run all the way back over to where the rope climbs are, dump the bag, shoot again, go back up the rope, come down the rope, pick up the bag, and run across the finish line. And one of the things I didn't think of is, and apparently this is a SWAT military aspect, there's a memory part of it. They're going to show you, here's an animal, or here's a cartoon. That's your target in the shoot house. Don't shoot anybody else's target. That's your target.
Cool.
Okay, cool. That's not a big deal. So mine was Scrooge McDuck. I walk in, first one's a duck. I almost draw my pistol. Nope. Go to the next room. There's Scrooge McDuck. There's my target. As you get to the end, they're like, all right, what did you see in here that doesn't make sense? I'm like, oh, come on. And it was what's in the room that you wouldn't think would normally be in a room in a shoot house.
Yeah.
And it was a mental aspect of, did you pay attention to everything? And then, of course, the guy's like, you can't go back, but you got 60 seconds before you can leave this room. You have to sit here for 60 seconds. So if you don't want to do anything, fine. But there's a piece of paper there and a pencil. Write down what you saw missing. And I'm like, now it's time to go through and, like, what did I remember? and it was kind of ugly because I'm like, okay.
And was that like, sounds like that was like a surprise then?
That was a surprise, complete surprise.
Yeah.
She had no idea that was coming.
Because all you did when you went in the room was just look for Scrooge McDuck.
I'm looking for Scrooge McDuck.
Very
one
vision.
main thing I'm looking to do, like most competition aspects. Here's the target, hit the alpha. And so I go through and I'm like, okay, it's a shoot house. All the doors are already open. I would expect that you have to kick a door in, right? So military, I'm a civilian, so I've never been in that scenario. And the guy's like, nobody's ever said that before. I'm like, there was a dummy on the floor in one of the rooms that somebody's already laying there dead. I mean, it's a dummy, but, military aspect. And they're like, nobody's ever said that before. Well, each one of the things that you happen to pick out as being a legitimate, that's kind of odd to walk into a shoot house and see, well, it's 10 seconds off your time.
Oh.
And then the scoring on it can be pretty painful because if you aren't perfectly in the center of a paper target, it's 10 seconds every miss. So the good part is shooting 3-gun, shooting USPSA and PRS, I didn't have any misses, and then I had 30 seconds coming off my time. So when we got to the end, my time wasn't the fastest because I was definitely probably one of the biggest guys who were out there. Or as I like to joke, I had high body fat content for the elite division. So as I came back and went to do the scores, I'm like, man, I'm not real confident with that. I didn't cross that finish line early. I went and checked. Well, a lot of those guys were dropping a lot of shots on paper because they were trying to just burn through it instead of being accurate.
Oh.
All of a sudden, I'm sitting in like 3rd or 5th place.
Wow,
Nice.
And it's
awesome,
like
man.
accuracy is an aspect that really comes into play. But then you're going to go through, you might have a 2 or a 5 mile run later. And that's not my place where I excel. So I didn't finish where I would have really liked to, and I was shooting in a division where I was kind of physically out of my league. Some of these guys are coming out of special forces groups and going to do that. No pictures taken, no names associated, everything else. And you're going like, all right, cool. That guy can run in full kit, rifle slung, pistol holstered, with a vest on, with mags, everything else for 2 miles at a 7-minute mile pace. I mean, even down to where I'm at now, a 250-pound, 5'9" guy does not do that. I am not a gazelle. So yeah, I'm planning on going back in November. I won't be doing the elite division. I'm going to be doing the intermediate. Let's go have some fun division. So
Right on, man.
it's a completely different aspect.
Oh, that's
from what I'm
cool.
used to.
And that seems to be kind of a new thing to these tactical games, right? So
They've kind of exploded in a year. It went from like, this is a cool concept, let's do this, to, hey, do you want to do it at our range? And then this year they've gone from one event to like 6. And they're already looking at contracting ranges for next year. So in a year, it's grown quickly.
sounds legit. So if you're listening, check them out. So there's Dylan, Garrett.
Hello. Garrett Grover. I'm the product specialist with Rise Armament. I've been with Rise for a few years. I was a sponsored shooter with them on the 3-gun team, and then I came on board as an employee a couple of years ago. I'm a combat vet. I spent most of my 18 years in the military in the reconnaissance and sniper world. So a lot of that kind of transitions over to competitive shooting.
You can shoot good.
Yeah, I do okay. I'm kind of like Dylan. I'm not a gazelle either. But, shoot mostly 3-gun, but do some long-range stuff. The Vortex Extreme, obviously, is one that is definitely my favorite for long-range competition, and then do some pistol matches and stuff, too. But,
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
speaking of, the Vortex Extreme, which is kind of a difficult match. I wouldn't say necessarily as difficult as what you were describing.
Different kind of difficulty.
A different kind of difficult. Yeah. It's less sort of. It's more just like I don't even know how to explain it.
Marathon versus a sprint.
Okay.
I mean, that we didn't have to have plate carriers on, but we I don't remember how many miles it worked out to, 8.8 to 9.3, something like that. I heard various numbers as far as the distance. But yeah, it was completely different. I mean, it was we hiked is what I'd probably refer to as most of it. We didn't really take off at a run.
Yeah.
So that part came into play. And then, of course, every quarter, half mile, you got another stage, and going to shoot out to 1,200 yards or so.
Exactly.
I think 1209 was the farthest.
Was that the first one we
Yeah.
shot? Yeah.
And so you guys were shooting, and part of the reason this topic came up was that you guys were shooting a new division for the Vortex Extreme last year, and it was the gas gun division.
Yep.
And we had a gas gun. No, we didn't have a gas gun division, but we had people who had shot gas guns kind of sparingly in the past. But it wasn't that popular. Most people, when they go to a match like that, a long range precision match with a lot of hiking and stuff like that involved, a lot of them were carrying bolt guns.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, that's because you can't shoot that far with a gas gun.
You have brought up exactly what we were hoping to tackle here. And so what's your guys' take on that? Because you guys were shooting gas guns. You actually placed very well overall. You wound up winning the gas gun division. Mm-hmm. And there's some interesting aspects to shooting a gas gun out at long range. First off, some people think they're less accurate. I mean, that's probably a big one. Some people just think bolt guns are just more accurate than gas guns. Why do they think that? Is that something that was true in the past? Is it still true? Where did that kind of conception come from?
So, I mean, there's definitely, it was true for sure.
Was it?
For a long time. Yeah, absolutely. Even in the Army, the standard that our gas guns were held to was about 1.5 minutes. Whereas the bolt guns were held to under 1 minute standard. So the standard was different for gas guns. But I think in recent years, the technology has come along. Your mechanical accuracy with the bolt gun is going to be better. There's no moving parts during the firing cycle, all that stuff. You're typically going to have heavier barrels. Your bolt's going to, your headspace is going to be more precise. All that stuff comes into play with a bolt gun. But practical accuracy, it's getting to the point now where with a gas gun, if you apply your fundamentals right, I mean, most gas guns out there now will shoot as good, will hang with a bolt gun in a practical accuracy scenario.
Explain practical accuracy versus, because mechanical accuracy, I'm kind of getting what you're saying. It just sounds a lot like how precisely are things fitting together. I mean, that's kind of what you think of a lot. But I don't think a lot of people think of practical accuracy. They kind of think, I got a Gen 2 Razor, mechanically very accurate. I got a Super Gucci bolt gun, mechanically very accurate. But what's this practical accuracy thing?
So practical accuracy is a term that I just kind of made up. But is your scope mounted properly? Is obviously a part of it. But I guess that would kind of go into mechanical accuracy. But practical accuracy is like, so what am I? A bipod, a rear bag, and application of the fundamentals.
Yeah, because when we introduce the human into it, that's where things go south. So, we go through and you can put that, let's say, into a ransom rest like we would a pistol or something, and go through and fire, and it's just going to sit there in one little bug hole group on almost every gun that you've got that's, a premium gun. You go through and put a human in there, and it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe you're capable with this gun of 3/4 inch at 100. And so that's one of the things that I noticed is I got, this awesome bolt gun, spent a bunch of money, built it, and everything's fantastic, super light trigger, everything's wonderful. My accuracy with it is right around where it is with my gas gun.
Right.
But I shoot a gas gun a lot. So that bolt gun's probably more accurate than that. So if I shoot a 1/2 inch group with both of them, well, that's fantastic. The bolt gun's capable of probably 1/4 inch or better. The gas gun's probably capable of maybe 1/4 inch.
So it's really, it is a case of it's not you, it's me.
Yeah. There's an aspect where, like, if I miss a shot with either one of my bolt gun or gas gun, I'm not blaming the gun. That's one of the things that excuses disappeared a long time. If it doesn't malfunction, it's me. Mm-hmm. My scope, I figured out how to mount it absolutely perfectly level, perfectly torqued. Everything is correct. I'm not over torquing. I'm not doing things like that. I'm not letting it slip loose, and it's perfect. It's exactly how I want it. So it's me. So I took all of that guesswork out.
Yeah. There's a lot of that happens, I think, in shooting that it's easy to overlook, especially because, and maybe, of course, being in marketing in a company in the firearms industry, maybe a little bit of it is our fault. But you always talk about, you see these banners and these billboards and this hyper accuracy, sub MOA and all this, that, and the other thing. And it's kind of like everybody just thinks, well, I just buy accuracy. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
you can to an extent.
Exactly, to an extent.
Yeah, you buy a $100 AR barrel, you can't expect it to shoot a 1/2 inch group. But if you have a good barrel, you can expect it to. But can you? There was a conversation I think I had with a buddy of mine recently. I said, how many rounds is this going to shoot out? Because I was looking at getting a different barrel to use for the Vortex Extreme this year. And he's like, well, it'll probably be shot out 16 to 1,800 rounds. That's a pretty short life. And
Yeah.
he goes, well, but, most shooters, it's going to be 3,000. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, if you take a shooter who can shoot a 1-inch group and the barrel's capable of a 1/4-inch group, and then as he gets better with the gun, he can shoot 3/4-inch. As the gun's starting to open up to a 1/2 inch, then from 2,000 to 3,000 rounds, it's opening up to 3/4 to an inch, and that's where he's capable. So he can shoot that gun for 3,000 rounds, 2,500 rounds. But the gun for PRS standards for accuracy is shot out at 16 to 1,800 because it's no longer shooting 1/4 inch. So the standards that you're being held to on that aspect are completely different.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Very interesting. So what else is going on as far as like bolt gun versus gas gun, again, specifically for long range shooting? What other kind of stuff did you guys run into that was like pros and cons, right? So we've already talked about a little bit of that mechanical accuracy of a bolt gun. It's just inherently, it can be more accurate.
You got, what, 2 moving parts?
Well,
And 2 to 3 moving parts for a bolt gun when the bolt closes?
yeah.
So when the gun fires, it's done.
Your hammer and your firing pin.
Yeah.
Your trigger. And that all happens before the bullet exits the casing. Whereas in a gas gun, arguably, the bolt should be unlocking if everything's done right about the time the bullet exits the muzzle. But if your dwell time's a little long or whatever, it's possible that you could be having your bullet still actually in the barrel as the bolt starts to unlock. And that will affect accuracy. So there's a game that you got to play there with your gas length, your gas system length, and where you put your gas hole and all that kind of stuff.
And then
That's kind of what
tuning it,
when people talk about tuning a gun, is that's kind of what they're doing.
That's some of it is that. And it also has to do with the your gas management and your buffer system and that sort of thing. But the big advantage to a gas gun is much faster follow-up shots.
Yeah.
Which is in the tactical world is huge. So if you can, and more manageable recoil too, because
the 3-gun world even more huge.
Yeah. You have that.
You know how many times I've tried to pull the trigger a second time on a bolt gun, and it doesn't go.
Yeah.
Because you have to rack it.
Why doesn't this work?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than sitting at a PRS match and you hit, or I guess I yell impact, and you go to shoot the next target, and you're just sitting there pulling a dead trigger. You're like, oh my God, I'm a moron in front of all these people.
Thing's
I've
broken.
done that. I've done that several times. But we actually, the week before the Vortex Extreme, Garrett had to help me with it because, like most 3-gunners, I tend to tinker with everything. And I threw a buffer system into my rifle before I went and had some malfunctioning issues. And come to find out, if you read the instructions that come with the buffer system, it tells you to do a certain thing. And I didn't do it because I bought it and slid it in the gun. Yeah. And I was having some just really major malfunctions with it. And Garrett goes through and figures it out in about 2 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, this gun's supposed to run like a sewing machine does.
I think that happened again recently, too, didn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. That comes down to what we were talking about, weapon maintenance versus cleaning.
Yeah.
And apparently you have to kind of do at least one of them.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't. Yeah. So, trigger's dead. I don't know what's going on. This bolt gun's not working right. Oh, it's a gas gun. Well, you should clean it because the inside is just growing things.
He had a family of refugees living in his little receiver.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
So one thing, you brought up like quick follow-up shots. I mean, did you guys find, like it seems like, we're talking like with Ian about F-class, and those guys will try and break shots when conditions are perfect.
Yeah.
And the faster they can follow up and kind of maintain consistency between those conditions and wind calls, is that an advantage for you guys as well?
I thought it was.
Yeah, I think it was as well. The recoil dampening effect of the buffer system and all that helps you stay on target faster and helps you get back on target faster.
Okay.
You're not breaking your cheek weld when you cycle the gun, which if you do it right, you shouldn't anyways. But so everything stays exactly the same. And if you got your bipods loaded and the gun's set up right, you're going to fire that first shot because you get 2 shots per target at Vortex Extreme, or however many shots per target at whatever you're shooting at. If you're set up right, and you fire that first shot and you need to make a second shot, you should just settle right back on target or pretty close to it and be ready to go like pretty much immediately. I mean, I can usually, with my razor, I've got the magnification up, I can usually watch my own bullet trace through my gas gun, and I don't even need a spotter.
Yeah, that is pretty huge, because you are talking about a target that is anywhere from, I'd say the majority of the targets at that particular match are 300 to 900. Yeah. That's kind of where the majority of them fall. And, that's pretty far, for a Wisconsin boy, especially here.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're looking through your scope, especially if there's a lot of jarring motions happening and the rifle's moving a lot, and with me, Eric and I are running a couple of Ruger Americans, which are fine performing rifles, probably outperform us. You're talking about like mechanical versus practical accuracy. I think our practical accuracy leaves a lot of room for a lot of different rifles to perform very well. And it's shocking how good this thing is. But not exactly the smoothest bolt throw, and especially Eric, for some reason, his was pretty stuck up, so you kind of had to like break your cheek weld, like you're saying, and then rack that bolt, bring it back, and next thing you know, it's kind of like, shoot, where's the target? And then you got to look around, and you're trying to find it through a scope, and you can find it outside the scope, and then I think I'm pointing in the same general direction. You got to look through the scope, back down the magnification. Next thing you know, you just wasted 10, 15 seconds off the clock, which you guys have already broken probably both your shots off.
We're on to the next target
exactly.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about just the speed aspect of just being able to stay on target and never leave.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're shooting 900 to 1,000, 1,200 yards, you get your wind call, you fire your first shot, and let's say you miss.
Right.
And you're quarter mil off the right edge, so I'm going to hold a half a mil farther left. Okay, cool, I can do it right now.
Yeah, you're making that correction.
I mean, immediate correction, and I mean that came in handy for us because I think we had a pretty good strategy for it.
So yeah, our communication was really good, but that's a whole nother topic.
Sure,
but
sure.
But it did help as far as the wind calls because we go through and have a kestrel catch the weather, everything else, and the environment, and then go through and get everything there. Then you were going to shoot first because we felt my gun was a little more accurate, but our velocity was super, super close, which is kind of rare for two guns to be almost identical. But
yeah, you guys were within like 20 feet per second or something.
yeah,
right?
it was insane. It was
really
perfect.
close. Yeah.
So
Worked
That's
out
awesome.
well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Garrett, I was going to ask, you mentioned something earlier, and, we're talking about accuracy with gas guns, and you said, well, that used to be the case, and with some, I guess, modern advancements or things like that, not necessarily the case anymore. So what are some of those differences, now versus then that are making these gas guns so accurate?
Well, a lot of it's in the barrel. People are just building guns better, for
Okay.
one thing. I mean, the large frame AR has kind of been a kind of a weird animal for a long time, and now it's getting to be much more common, much more popular.
Yeah.
There's still not really a spec that anybody follows. I mean, everybody kind of does their own thing, but people are figuring.
I don't know why that's so strange because the AR-15, which is just a small frame version, essentially, I know there's a fair amount of differences, but it's like they've got that thing so specced out.
Well, but that's because the military adopted it.
I see. Okay.
So the military adopted it as their standard issue weapon, and so the civilian side, all the manufacturers just followed suit. But that hasn't really happened with the large frame.
Okay.
But
'cause
people are going to innovate.
You have
and
DPMS pattern.
there's a
got Armalite
DPMS and an
pattern.
Armalite pattern, and then like ours is kind of a love child between the two. And then there's other companies that
Then you got a
have
small large frame and a large frame.
There's-
and
yeah, there's-
there's all kinds
and
of
then
stuff that comes into play.
everybody's got their own take on it.
Right.
And you rarely will you ever find two that will actually work together.
Yeah.
Like from different manufacturers.
Right.
But
right.
what I was getting at is that people have kind of figured it out. The engineering is there, advancements in technology, computer-assisted drawings, all that stuff. And then, barrel technology has really come along. And, just people are figuring out all the, I can take, tighten up my freebore diameter by a thou and squeak this a little bit more accuracy and push the lead out a little bit further. And, people are just figuring it out. And with chamberings, and when we were developing our 6.5, I went back and forth with the company that cuts our chambers, and I had them move it like a thou at a time deeper until I finally got the accuracy that I wanted. And that's why our guns are so accurate.
Yeah.
It was a long process.
And are you doing that then using, because we've talked to, now I'm trying to draw parallels between our reloading podcast or the long range podcast and stuff. And, we've talked about the chambering and jumping or jamming and having to try and make something pretty standardized for a lot of the different factory loads out there and understanding that people are going to be getting factory loads, reloading their own ammunition and stuff. So how are you doing? Like, are you using a certain standard? Like, this is the bullet that we're going to have this thing standardized to, or?
So I have a standard that I use that I'm like, okay, this is the one.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's usually one that's pretty common that
Okay.
everybody uses. I'll just tell you, in our guns, it's the Hornady 140 grain ELD factory load.
Okay.
Shoots great, and that's what I use. But I also will go to Walmart and find the cheapest, like 6.5 Creedmoor ammo I can find or whatever, just because I know that's what a lot of people are going to do. And see how it shoots with that as well.
True.
You know, rarely does it shoot as well, but as long as it fits, within that sub-MOA guarantee, we're good.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fitting within the expectation of the person buying that ammo too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you said, you do pay a premium for precision and accuracy. Not all the time, but I'd say oftentimes. And for goodness sakes, if you're still talking sub-MOA.
Yeah. I know a lot of times I've gone into the store and I've been guilty of buying the cheapest ammo possible, and I always just think to myself, I have this moment in my head like, if I just make sure to break off a really good shot, then maybe I can just kind of, if I make sure that my practical accuracy is like as close to 0 MOA as I can get it, maybe I can even out a little bit.
That's how you become a really good shooter.
Yeah.
If you're shooting a deer at 30 yards, I think you're good.
Yeah.
Probably. And around Wisconsin,
that
very likely could be the case. But yeah, so you think, does a lot of it come down to the barrel then? I mean, because with a gas gun, you have a lot of you look at a gas gun and there's a lot of meat there, so to speak, right? Because you got a lower, you got pistol grip, you got a stock, buffer system, hand guard, upper, lower. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to look at. But really, if you kind of looked at like a Superman X-ray vision look at a gas gun, I mean, the part that's actually doing a lot of the accuracy portion of things, it's what is it, the barrel and the BCG where it ends up with the chamber? And
there's more than that. I mean, how you tune your comp, if you're running a compensator, can actually affect your accuracy. Or if you're running a flash hider, because the way those gases move around in that tiny little space in that brief split second as that bullet's passing through that compensator can affect your accuracy. And I don't do it because I'm happy with the way they shoot with them just set up out of the factory. But there are guys out there who, like, especially some of the extreme like bullseye shooters and stuff, they actually tune their comp to their ammo, and they'll cast their chambers and see where their lands are starting, and they'll actually extend lengthen their bullets out, or not their bullets, but their cartridges out a little bit longer. They won't seat their bullets quite as deep so that it's engaging with the lands right where they want it to. And then 50 rounds later, they're doing it again, and it's insane.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. But with a gas gun, so there's your bolt is very important. I learned that playing with the 224 Valkyrie. Like the bolt is kind of a big deal with that.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple different types of 6.8 SBC bolts out there, and you got to have the right one to match up with your barrel, which is crazy because I went through a couple different bolts and finally found one, and now I'm getting good groups with mine that I've been experimenting with. But so your bolt, you want that dwell time to be appropriate. You want it to be perfect. The gun's got to cycle, and you got to bleed off enough gas to make the gun cycle reliably, but you don't want it to cycle so fast that it's unlocking before your bullet, while your bullet is still like in the barrel. Does that make sense?
Can you explain dwell time?
So dwell time is the time from where the back of the bullet passes the gas hole in the barrel and gas starts to bleed off into the gas tube and the bullet exits the muzzle. Mm-hmm. So that's what's called dwell time.
So as you look at the outside of your barrel, it's essentially the space between the gas block and where the end of the barrel is.
Basically, it's the space between the gas hole and the muzzle. Mm-hmm. And that's what dwell time is. And that time, you want to try to time it to where that gas is hitting your gas key and traveling down into your carrier and just starting to unlock right as the bullet's exiting the muzzle, and that little gas that's still behind the bullet has enough to bleed off to make the gun cycle. It's a trick, and people tune their gas holes and everything, and all that stuff comes into play with a gas gun. So you can, if you really wanted to get into the science and you had your own shop, I mean, you could make a gas gun that is incredibly accurate. But most of the gas guns out of the box nowadays, especially ours, are capable of sub-MOA, capable of it, mechanically capable of it.
That's one thing that I've heard. I think I was talking with Ruben once about it too, because we were looking at a gun that he had. What was it? I know I had built like 2 ARs, and Ruben had built a couple, and we were looking at them, and then we'd worked with you guys on getting a. I think it was a Rise Armament AR that came in. It was something like that.
Yeah, we sent you guys a couple of them, a 308 and a couple of 223s, I think, and
Yeah, and I remember we pulled them out of the box, and Ruben was like, "There's something about a factory gun that's just way different. It's just like you can't build it yourself in your garage like they build it. Like when it comes out of the box, there's something about a factory gun that's just better." And as you talk about these things where it's like dwell times, tuning things, the bullets leaving exactly as the bolt is unlocking, and just all these other factors that go into it, I'm realizing that these are all things where, like, when I just bought a bunch of random parts on Brownells or Midway or whatever and just slapped it all together, like, I didn't think about any of that. Like, who knows what any of my built guns are doing? Like,
well, we're talking about this mechanical accuracy, and hearing Garrett talk about this trial and error of a thou, and just marrying all these different parts up, essentially as perfect as you can. I think you're just going to get a better result.
do you think it's easier to build an accurate bolt gun than it is to build an accurate gas gun yourself, like by piecing parts together?
So
for those reasons,
I've never built a bolt gun myself.
Okay.
So I can't really speak to that. I feel like it should be, because there's a lot less parts.
Right.
I'd say there's less parts to mess with, but I think like anything else, you're going to have the gunsmith aspect, the guy who's going to take the care to look at the little minute details.
Yeah.
Because there's some things that I do with a gas gun that are like people go like, that's crazy. Yeah, but the gas gun comes out and it shoots a half-inch group.
Right.
Like, you're not going to grab too many off the shelf and get that kind of accuracy. But if you tweak this and you adjust this and your gas is set here and you're using this part and tuning this to where it's fitting perfectly, then things change. And I'm sure with a bolt gun, because I'm lucky enough, I live close to one of the best bolt gun builders in the nation in Kansas City. And when those guys are building those bolt guns, they're going through, and I've been in and seen the stocks that are being bedded. And it's like, yeah, that's got to sit there for this long. I'm like, huh? Why? You just bedded it and you put it together and you ship it out, right? No. It has to sit here this long. And then they're going through, like, what kind of inserts you put in the stock and what type of, pillars and all kinds of things that I don't really understand as a gas gun guy. So when I had my bolt gun built, even with a chassis, I went to them and I'm like, okay, here are all the parts that I would like.
Yep.
Can you get me this barrel? And then they got me the barrel. And it's like, okay, whatever you do your wizardry. And then when I got it back, it shot fantastic. But I think it's attention to details. You probably can take a Remington 700 bolt gun and bolt it into a chassis yourself and like, it shoots 3/4 inch. Does that mean that you eked everything out of it?
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's bolt gun builders out there who, by my question, are probably tearing their hair out. Like, bolt guns are complicated too. And I totally understand. I don't want to make it seem
they're
like
probably listening to this and they're like, all right, challenge accepted. Yeah, I'm going to go to the Vortex Extreme and show these guys up.
Please do. But yeah, no, it is. It's something like, because so many people get into building stuff in their own garage. I actually converted my closet at our old house into my gun working room, and
how'd that go over?
My mom was all for it. Kept me out of trouble.
Okay,
I did it in high school. But yeah, like I put stuff together all the time back there, and I keep looking back on it now, and it's like the more we talk about accuracy, the more I've talked with Ian about guns that he's built and stuff like that. I'm just like, God, what was I doing? Like, those guns are probably just utter dog crap. Like, they work, I guess.
They go bang.
But that's what I was building them to. I was just building them to work.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that was cool. But
here's the thing: it doesn't matter how accurate it is. If it doesn't work, who wants it? You know what I mean?
Dunzo, right?
I'm not going to trust my match or my life or whatever to a gun that doesn't work.
What's that? The loudest sound you ever hear at a 3-gun match?
Yeah, it's a click when you expect a bang. Yeah,
true.
Like, I feel bad for that guy.
It's even louder when you're overseas.
Yeah.
How'd you imagine?
Yeah. But and we're really getting deep into the science on it. But the truth is, you can go out in your garage. I've got guns tore apart on my workbench all the time. And I'm just slapping them together and, here's this one part, and I'll stick it on there and take it to the range and it shoots great. I don't always get sub-MOA accuracy out of them, but you can typically build just like you're building in your closet with just a hodgepodge bunch of parts and get a gun that's going to shoot pretty good. A lot of it's, get a good barrel.
Yeah.
And use good ammo is one thing that a lot of people overlook is the ammo.
That's one that's always funny. You're going to go through and have this just absolutely Ferrari'd out rifle with this great optic, great mount, everything's perfectly spec'd, and then like Walmart budget ammo. Oh, come on, buddy.
Well, it's just
you
like
can't
when people
really
get the
expect
Walmart
that.
rings.
Right.
Yeah.
It totally is.
Well, then the thing that comes into play, like, well, what'd you torque them to? Oh, I torqued them plenty. That's not a good answer.
Hard as I can
really
get 'em.
bad. Yeah.
I'd say lots to many.
They popped 6 times on each one when I was squeezing it.
Exactly.
So
this thing is a 308. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's going to kick. And I want these rings down tight.
Yes.
40 foot-pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
At first, I couldn't get the rings to seat and clothes all the way together, but eventually I got them to touch.
Now, as you bring up ammunition, what are the ammunition, or are there any ammunition considerations when you're talking about gas gun versus bolt gun? You know, does that change up? Like if I'm running a gas gun, you know, I'm used to going to the store, and you brought up like 140 grain ELD, I think it was ELDX or something like that.
Just
ELD
match. Yeah.
ELD match. I'm used to going to the store for my bolt gun and just grabbing a box of those. Now, is that going to do? I imagine it works just fine in a gas gun, but are there any ways to find specific things that work better?
Yeah, you're always going to have what your gun likes as far as a bullet and ammo. And if I remember correctly, I think Hornady had one of the Super Performance or something like that. It was actually recommended not to use in a gas gun. It was a little too hot.
Okay.
At least at the time, that was the case, because I had a 308 a long time ago, and went and bought it. And I was like, man, these flinging brass, and the accuracy isn't that great. And look at the brass and the flattened primers. And no, that's bolt gun ammo.
Or pierced primers, where you got little chunks of primer back in your bolt carrier. Which
So bolt guns can handle a little bit hotter loads?
Nothing's having to move.
Yeah, they're locked, and they stay locked.
Okay.
So there's that, and then magazines. The ammo has to fit in the magazine. Whereas a bolt gun, you could load your ammo, potentially a little. You could load it a little bit longer if you needed to.
Okay.
And load them individually, whereas you can't do that. Well, you can with a gas gun. You've got a magazine in, lock it back, drop it in, and hit your bolt release. But it's not really real practical.
It's not as practical.
You want,
right.
you gotta load a magazine length.
Gotcha.
So there are some considerations. I mean, 99% of ammo out there is going to work fine in both guns. Every gun, you could build two identical guns that come off the line back to back, and they're going to shoot different. They just have personalities. We just got lucky, and ours
Yeah, we did.
Ours both like that ammo that we were shooting.
Yeah, we were lucky. We were in Wyoming the week before, and they had a range there where you could shoot out to, was it 1,100?
1,000, I think, 1,000, 1,100, something like that.
And it's like, okay, well, let's see what these things can do, and we can get dope while we're here. And so we went ahead and did that, and it was like, oh, okay, well, there's this target out there, 10-inch wide.
It was a popper.
It's hanging upside down. I remember that.
It was a hanging popper.
So whatever that center scoring zone is.
I think the center scoring circle's 10 or 12 inches, something like that.
So
at 1,100 yards.
We were shooting it and basically calling for each other, like, your group coming out of your guns, you're catching it all over that 10-inch, and this one's hitting a 5-inch or 6-inch group at that distance. This one's going to be the one we use for points.
Yeah, his gun was grouping a little bit better than mine, so I shot first, and then we used mine to make the win. And if I get hits, great. But we used my gun to get the win call, and then his gun was grouping a little bit better. So I might get 3 or 1 or maybe 4 points out of my gun, but we were more likely to get 4 points out of his gun, and that was the strategy that we used.
It's a good strategy.
Well. Yeah.
So Dylan, he sent you in like the canary then.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
if you're going to have somebody get some information for you, send the sniper to get it first, and then let the trigger jockey make up the points after. So.
Well, in sniper teams, the way they're organized is not like in the movies. The senior man is always the spotter, and usually you got your guy that just graduated sniper school on the actual gun, because a monkey can quarter a target and pull a trigger.
Yeah.
Even Dylan can do it.
Spotting's tough.
Yeah.
Spotting is no joke.
Yep.
Trying to make those calls at long range, trying to figure out if the bullet splash came from the bullet passing behind the target or if it was in front. It's like.
Well, then going through, if you want to see trace, I had a couple people out to my range, and we were practicing some long range for a match that's coming up, and he'd never looked behind a spotting scope, and I'm like, okay, so I can see a trace. He's like, the target's all blurry. I'm like, don't worry about that. Like, I'll shoot, just watch. Don't touch anything, just look through the lens and watch. And next thing he's looking through, he's like, okay, well, what spotting scope is this? What tripod is this? What is this? And how do you do this? And he was going nuts because he could actually physically see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you can't zoom in on the target and get a really good view on the trace, and you can't zoom all the way out and get a really good view. You kind of have to be in that middle ground, and if you don't know that type of stuff, because the first time I went out, I had no idea. And, got the spotting scope, and I'm looking through, I was like, yeah, the target's super clear. Cool. Good for you.
Sounds good.
It's not always just the best part of it, though.
We typically try to, when you want to see traces, focus about 2/3 of the way to the target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Big trade secret right there.
Well,
Trade
that's
secret,
For everybody to hear.
And maybe that's an entire podcast on its own, but I mean, it sounds like you guys both have a lot of experience spotting. I mean, what are some tips out there that's obviously like a really, really good one there, but what are some, hot tips to become a good spotter?
So the biggest enemy to long range shooting is wind.
Yes.
So there's all these other effects, and that's great, but they're really easy to calculate, and in a little bit of experience you can get it figured out. Wind can be a nightmare though. especially if you're shooting over valleys and in between what obstacles, whatever. Especially like in an urban area where you've got buildings that you're shooting in between and stuff, it gets pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. So learning how to read wind would be focused 90% of your time on, because especially with ballistic apps and stuff nowadays, you just type all that stuff in. What you can't account for is wind gusts and things like that. That takes experience.
Gotcha.
So,
and if you are spotting for somebody, where should they be positioned? I mean, is it going to make a difference? I mean, if they're 10 feet to your right or
behind them,
directly behind
them,
Yeah.
and as close to their bore as you can get.
Yeah, that was with us shooting the Vortex Extreme. We were both behind the gun.
Yeah, so you're side by side.
So you're side by side, which I had a larger PRS style muzzle brake. So Garrett figured out real quick if we were shooting kind of at an angle, he did not want to be on a certain side of me because he got punched in the face by the muzzle brake. So
yeah, that was not pleasant.
It was comical on my end. And then of course we got like a 10-minute walk to get to the next stage while he's cursing my name.
And
it's
I'm
always
I'm
comical.
plucking little bits of dirt and stuff out of my beard.
It's always comical when you're the guy with the brake.
Oh yeah,
because life as pleasant as can be for you.
Well, and that was interesting. The tactical games part. Not to go back too far. Muzzle brakes are no longer allowed after a bunch of 3-gunners showed up and shot the tactical games and had some brass blowing off of it and hitting shooters next to us. And I believe one guy's eye protection started melting from the muzzle blast. And they're like, "Yeah, so flash hiders only now." So made it a little safer because it's a different environment. Suppressor's perfectly fine. I don't want to carry that thing for a 2-mile run, but yeah, suppressor's fine.
Yeah. You guys were shooting, when you guys were out at that match, you guys were shooting mighty fast. I know we talked about the follow-up shots, but you guys also had, and now we're just chatting a little bit about strategies because obviously your strategy worked pretty well. You guys said that this year it seemed as though the cardio was the biggest thing to get back into.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. But you guys were shooting fast. Like, as far as it'd be one shooter would go, 2 shots, boom, boom. And there were times where, like, the next shooter would almost shoot, like, immediately. And was that part of the reason? Was part of the reason for that just because you didn't want conditions to change in between shots?
I would say it was impatience.
Yeah, well, we were trying to save time. You
Right.
know, I mean, because the whole course is timed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, we're going to shave off a few seconds, or maybe a minute off a stage, but over 10 stages, that's 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, that's
there were a couple of times I think we probably could have taken a little more time because we had one of them that was 1,200-yard target. No. And we're up there, and we fired our shots at the 1,200-yard target. And I don't think either one of us connected with it. I think it was a little off the edge or something.
Just a little off the edge, yeah.
And went through, and he's like, "Oh, you guys finished? You got 3 minutes left." That was probably one where I could have taken a little more time. And that's in shooting PRS. You're talking about a different style. If you're shooting at the GA Precision PRS match near me in Kansas City, you got 90 seconds to shoot the stage. My first instinct is like, fastest time possible in 3-gun, and you go and you break your shot and you hit, if there's 8 targets, 10 targets, whatever, and you hit 4, that's not good. It doesn't matter how fast you were, that's not good.
Yeah.
And so it's a different aspect to it. So I know for me, impatience was kind of part of it, but there were certain stages there, 300 yards, I'm pretty comfortable ripping through that pretty quickly.
And you guys...
the close ones I would shoot, and I would move on to the next target while he was engaging, and I wouldn't even spot for him because it's 300 yards.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, in 3-gun, we do that with our little 6-power scopes all the time, and 223 all the time,
Yeah. That makes sense. But I was wondering, because, like, we'd come up to a stage, and Eric and I, if we were really, really booking it, and by that I mean, fast walk instead of a slow walk, but you get up there and somebody would just be finishing and you'd overhear him being like, "Wind's going right to left." And so I'd look at Eric and be like, "We got this. Wind's going right to left." We get down, set up. 5 minutes later, we start shooting. We're holding, a little bit to the right, expecting this right to left wind. Nope, it's going left to right at that point. And it was just like, what the heck's going on? I thought wind's going right to left. And then he's looking again and he's kind of like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like the sagebrush over there is blowing left to right. No, that can't happen.
It couldn't possibly be that those guys did that on purpose either.
True. It's absolutely not possible.
Yeah, we were at the banquet last night, and he took the last roll. Watch this.
But we were running our time down every single time. You get, 10 minutes on a stage. Once you're locked and loaded, or once you're ready to go, you get 10 minutes to shoot through. 6?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it was 10. But we were running ourselves down to just like the end of our possible time every time. I don't think we ever ran out of time. We got through everything, but every time it was like, you got 30 seconds, and we're like, we got to shoot 3 more shots.
Yeah.
And one thing that I also thought that just occurred to me too was that we had to reload in the middle of while we were shooting through it. So there's
Oh, sure.
Because you guys had like
Oh,
a
yeah.
3 or a 5 round mag.
because we had
then.
4-round mag, I think. And
Yeah.
so
And you're
I imagine
shooting-
you guys didn't have any issues with that.
No,
you guys
we were
just
running
loaded up a 20 or a 10.
10 round mags. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say I literally loaded up 10 round P mags, and the long range, the LR P mags, threw them into my pack, and just when we show up to the stage, I just grabbed another mag.
See, that would be pretty slick.
That would be.
Especially with that limited time, because I mean, it was like every time we got there, we're sitting down, we're looking at the targets, finding everything, and meanwhile, like loading rounds into our little tiny mag. You slap those in, and it was like maybe it was 3. I don't remember. The number was really awkward because you'd shoot 2 per target. And it was like, okay, I shot 2 on this target, he shot 2 on that target. You shoot 2 on the next one, you shoot 2 on the next one, and then you would shoot like 1 on the next one, and then have to reload or whatever it was. And it was just like it always came at really inopportune moments, and then you'd have to take that out, reload, and then put it back in. And the more we talk about this, the more I'm really curious to shoot it with a gas gun one of these years.
That was one of the advantages, I think, for gas gun at that particular match. What's a P mag? $20 maybe for a 308 one.
You can
20,
find
25.
them. Yeah, you can find them less than that.
Okay,
But,
so
yeah.
if let's say $20, if I got $200 in mags thrown in there, it's like, yeah, okay. Well, for my bolt gun chassis, that's like 2 mags. I'm not going to go buy 10
Right.
mags for my bolt gun.
Yeah.
I mean, because in PRS, I'm not going to be using 10 mags. So I've got probably 5, and one of them's like a 3 round or 5 round that I don't take with me, and the rest of them are 10 round, and they're expensive. And I mean, like I was talking to a friend of mine about he wants to go shoot it. I'm like, yeah. I said, you'll take these mags. I'll give you the mags. I'll give you the gun. Scope set up. Here's the ammo to buy. Go have fun. I'm like, you're gonna need a backpack to carry this thing. Do not try and put it on a sling, and give him a warning ahead of time. And he's like, okay, well, yeah, just load all the mags up. I'm like, not like what we did, because I'm not going to go buy 6 more or whatever mags for that thing.
Yeah.
You're talking
Well-
$1,000 in mags probably.
Magpul now has the AICS pattern
Yeah.
magazines, and I have one for my my Remington bolt gun, chassis gun.
That is
Oh,
very
okay.
helpful.
And yeah,
Yeah.
they're a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
They're still kind of expensive. They're about $35, but it's not $100 or whatever
Yeah.
for an
Right.
AI mag, a metal one.
Right. Yeah, but I'm going to give that a shot this coming year. But you guys mentioned, too, I mean, just as far as we kind of feel free to bring up any other things, too, that we missed as far as our questions go. But, you guys are speaking to a little bit of the stuff you're preparing for this next Vortex Extreme. I mean, what kind of stuff are you guys thinking as far as the way things went last year versus the way things went this year? Maybe placing a little higher overall. You were talking about what are you looking at doing
was the total
there?
point count? Do you remember that? Like how many? I mean, I know there were
Sounds like a Mark question.
10 stages.
10 stages.
And-
Each person was going to take 80 shots.
Yeah, and then you had a potential of. I
There
think
was
we did the math on
There
it.
was 8 points. What's 8 times 4? 16. 32 points possible per stage, so 320 possible for the whole match.
Okay.
Sounds right. And then how fast you finished
Yeah.
was,
Was
scaled, and
like-
that was going to,
That was like 30% of the
30%
of the score. Yeah.
Yeah,
of
so
the
when we went
score.
through, I think, if I remember right, our score was around 245 to 250
It was-
out of that 320.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah,
So,
something like that.
obviously we want to improve on that. That's a big part of the score. But that other 30%, both of us are big guys, and in order to make an improvement, that 30% is still a low-hanging fruit. So if we're able to get through quicker, I think
shave.
that's going to help quite a bit. Because we
Shave.
did it in, 4 hours? 4
Yeah,
hours
if we
and
could
some change?
shave 30 or 40 minutes or even an hour off our time. I mean, he's lost, I don't even know how much. I've lost 20 pounds.
Dude,
Nice.
Yeah.
impressive.
It was funny with the Vortex, we're both 3 gunners, and we go shoot this match, the Vortex Extreme, and now we're both like, all right, we got to lose weight.
Yeah.
All year we've been prepping for it. Like, we talk about it at least once a week.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
we
We got the same personal trainer, and
Yeah, got Garrett set up with the same trainer, and so now he hates him too. So Tony, I'm sorry, we both hate you. I only hate him from 7:45 to 8:45 every morning.
Well,
After that, he's a good guy.
Right,
So,
right.
But during that time, I hate his guts.
So you guys are taking it serious.
Yeah,
Oh, heck yeah.
so this is the match, the 2019 Vortex Extreme I've done more preparation for than any other match ever. And it's still like 4 months away or whatever.
Right. We'll have to follow up with you guys afterwards, see how that all worked out.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause that'll be interesting to see.
When you guys started this training, I mean, did you take like a solid baseline of where you started then?
Yeah,
As far as
using that, and then also going through the trainer and kind of explaining where we're at right now
yeah.
and where we want to be. And,
Okay.
And he would go through. I mean, the first I don't kind of the same thing when I talk to you. The first week or two that you're in the gym doing something, you're like, what am I doing? This is not what I want to be doing. It's like, hey, well, you're fat and out of shape. guess what? You need to do things to get the muscles and the bones ready to actually work out. Like, oh, yeah, whatever, I can do it. He goes, okay, no, just stick with this for a while. Then you get up the next morning and you realize, like, oh, wow, I'm really sore. Like, I didn't do that much. I'm really sore. And then 2 weeks later, you realize, like, yeah, he was right because this is not fun. So there's nothing. I think the last workout I did before we came here was like 30 burpees that day was a small portion of it.
Yeah.
You know, that was a very small portion. Like, oh, this is not meant for enjoyment.
If that's a small sliver of what you got going on, you know you're in store for some pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get up at just prepping for this match and just to be fit in general, you know, because it's going to help me in 3-gun and just general life. But I get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym.
It's dedication,
man.
man.
That is dedication.
But it was the VE that inspired it, you know. I mean, I was a weightlifter before.
We're improving lives.
Yeah, you guys are changing people's lives.
Exactly.
But, you know, I was a weightlifter before, and then I just... Sorry, guys.
Oh, no, I was going to say, maybe I need to get that same motivation. That'd probably be a good idea.
You probably get an AR
get
done.
after it,
Yeah,
Mark.
you need to get an AR first.
I think you.
Maybe I'll hit up that gas gun division.
Priorities. If you show up to the gas gun division at the Vortex Extreme this year, my mind will melt. You will have gone from having no AR to suddenly competing with one.
That would probably be enjoyable.
Dare to dream.
Dare to dream. Indeed.
I've got more
do.
than
And what
one.
would make
I
it
think I
even
would
better is
donate
if
one
you
to that.
then won the division.
Really dare to dream.
You never know, man. Well, hey, that was a cool conversation to have with you guys. And what do you say we jump into some last calls about this stuff? Bolt
do
guns
it.
and gas guns.
These guys familiar with the last
You
calls,
guys
Jim?
familiar with last calls?
I'm not.
We're just going to bring it in for a landing. So you just follow your heart.
Okay.
Whatever your heart tells you to say at the end.
Final thought.
Yeah. This is your, Custer's last stand on the podcast. But
Okay.
you're not going to die at the end.
Oh, thank God.
Just think of something, off the cuff.
You don't know that.
Yeah,
You could.
You never know.
You might.
I got kind of weird. I didn't actually know where that came from.
As long as it's incredibly profound, then you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Marco, how about you? Because our guests are always the better ones at last calls. We kind of suck at it. Mark, you go first.
I don't have a good one. I just, every time I leave any of our podcasts, I leave with a lot of inspiration and intrigue. And, dude, I'm just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to, create a concrete self-prophecy here, but I've got some intrigue of the gas gun division right now.
Yeah. My question for you guys, and Garrett, I'm going to take the focus off.
This is called the deferment last call.
Yeah, this is a deferment. Mark used it last time, and I used a regular last call, but now I'm going back to my defer. I'll bring the attention off Rise and the stuff that you make here for a bit.
Okay.
As far as long-range gas guns, is there really anything else out there besides like the AR-10 platform or AR-15? Some of them can go long-ish, but are there any other viable long-range gas gun platforms that are
not roughly based around the AR.
Right, yeah. I'm trying to think of anything, there's the M1 that's pretty okay. But
Yeah.
it's really heavy. You wouldn't want to carry around a lot.
A lot
I
of
don't know if
things
it's as
moving there.
accurate as
It's not the weight really with the M1, the M1A. And there are some that shoot really, really well.
Oh, undoubtedly.
But as a general rule, they're not. In my
just not
experience, they're not as accurate.
quite as accurate.
Yeah, and
Other than that, is there
man, I can't really think of anything.
So you start to get into like a Barrett 50 cal or something like that. If you try
Oh,
to
yeah,
find something
yeah,
Sure,
comparable.
some of the
Barrett's-
real big stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some other ones out there, but for the most part, what you're going to find is an AR platform.
I was just curious because, I always have to try and find something different than what everybody else has.
Yes.
If I just get an AR-10, then I'm like everybody else who's going to get gas guns after
Dude,
this
if you show up
podcast.
with a Barrett, that would be so awesome.
The 80-yard offhand target, I want to stand there and watch it.
I'm going to have to start doing some tactical games to get ready for doing
Oh, you're going to
that.
have to do more than that.
I think I'm going to have to,
We might need more
grow
targets.
about 40 pounds worth of muscle.
I remember so one of the stages there was like an 80-yard offhand
Yeah, it
target.
was 87
Yes.
yards.
Yeah, and so we're standing there, and of course the 2-3 gunners, they're going through like, okay, well, at the buzzer you guys can start. Beep, Garrett's whack, whack, and he drops down prone. Whack, whack, I drop down prone. So we both got all of our hits on it, obviously. And as we drop down, in the background, we're talking about the target distance. Okay, it's this hold or whatever. And the guy's like, 11 seconds.
You could hear him having a conversation in the back, like, God dang, that was fast.
And all I can think is I'm pretty sure it'd be 11 seconds that first shot holding a Barrett 50 cal on the offhand target, and then, all right, guys, stop. We got to go pick the target up.
Yeah, hold on, guys.
You broke everything.
Yep. Well, I just was super embarrassed on that target because I was walking up and, I'm with Eric Barber, who's like Midwestern hunter extraordinaire, just lives and breathes shooting deer around Wisconsin and such. And I'm walking up there and I'm like, all right, so we got an offhand target on this next one. I'm like, do you know the proper technique for shooting an offhand target? And Eric's like, Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. He's kind of like, oh, no, what is it? And I'm like, well, I've heard from a number of folks out there, you got to do this. I'm walking him through the whole thing as we're walking up to the stage, probably like a 3-minute conversation of like all this, advanced ballistic and shooting form and whatnot. And he's like, oh, cool. Yeah, sounds really cool. Anyway, they start the clock, and he's actually, for some reason, started out prone, but he just gets up, stands up, and just with his Ruger American right there, goes, boom, ting, boom, ting. And then he goes down prone, and I'm kind of like, oh, wow, this must be, I'm like, I probably taught him really well. I mean, I jump up and I try doing my whole thing, missed both of them just awfully. We go through the whole stage, and I was kind of like, man, like, you did pretty well on that offhand. I was like, did you do any of the straight? He's like, I got to be honest with you, I didn't do any of that. He's like, I just treated it like I was shooting a deer. And I was like, I should have guessed.
Yeah. He just went to his default.
He did.
Yeah, that's funny.
That target in particular, though, I always love that one. It's actually one of my favorites because I think mentally people, they're just like, oh, chip shot.
Check it out.
I mean, they're already on to the next target before they even start to shoot.
Right.
And you're not the only one that missed that one. It's
Right.
But that's 8 points. You got to take it as seriously as every other target. It's 8 points.
Yeah.
That's the easy 8 points you have to get.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We actually had some
They don't
some
always get
offhand
got.
fun at SHOT Show, not this last year before.
Yeah.
We grabbed a 4.5 to 27 razor. We put it on the new 6.5 Creedmoor, kind of showing it at the show. And we shot it a couple times, and Garrett had it just absolutely dialed in at the target at 960, and I shot it. I'm like, okay, that's boring. I'm like, I need one. I want one, but that's boring. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you could do this standing offhand. He's like, well, if we have time later. So we come through, and eventually we had a little lull.
No.
So I stood up and fired the first shot, hit it offhand. I'm like, put this down. That's never going to happen again. And so was it
Put that one
Dustin
in
that
the
went
books.
running?
So you did it, and then people started coming. I heard you can shoot 960 yards offhand with this rifle. Well, we only got 1,000 rounds.
There's that mechanical
so.
accuracy coming into play.
Yeah.
You guys
Guaranteed 960-yard offhand impacts first round.
Sub MOA.
I'm expecting to see the Rise 960 next year.
Yeah.
it was interesting because I don't know how many people we ended up. We ran
About 20 probably. And
About
some
20 people hit
some
offhand.
pretty kind of big names in the industry. Rob Pincus came and did it. And,
Nice.
Yeah.
Then it became who can do it 2, who can hit it 3.
You did 4 out of 5.
I had 4 out of 5 at 960.
I did,
with
I
it.
think, 2 out of 5.
Dang.
Yeah, it was almost comical though, because if you know how to shoot offhand, you're kind of drifting through the target and knew exactly where to hold. And the one that I missed out of that 5, I was like, off the right edge. And he goes, I'm like, yeah, I need one of these rifles, please. I'm like, I already got the scope to put on it. So
That's sweet. All right. Was that a last call on your end? All right. Garrett, there you go.
Okay.
What do you got?
So I get to impart some wisdom now.
You are the most profound person right now.
Okay, well, so I'm just going to say this. Life is not about the destination, it's about the journey. So have fun.
Wow.
I think I saw that on a T-shirt.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
I'm pretty sure. It was on a shirt somebody just walked by.
Somebody
I
just
stole
walked
it.
by. I like it. And so what you're getting at is the journey of a 6.5 Creedmoor round as it makes its way through the 10-round PMAG and then into the bolt gun and then on its way to the target.
It starts before that. It starts as a chunk of lead in the ground.
Oh.
And a miner, extracts it from the ground. Mm-hmm. And then it goes through the casting process and gets turned into a bullet. And then it lives its life on a shelf in a store for however long.
Till it
Just
finds a
waiting
Talking
waiting
to its
to find its destiny.
Talking to its other bullet friends.
Talking to its other bullet friends.
It looks up to its right and sees the 300 wisdom there, and it says, "Why you got to be such an?"
Yeah.
That's supposed to mean.
It just looks up and says, "Why you always
The
gotta,
wisdom is a gentleman.
Why you got to hit people in the shoulder so hard?"
That's just the gun that I have it in.
I am
That's not the cartridge's
I am a
fault.
great long range cartridge, and I'm very kind to people. And meanwhile, you're over here bucking people around like a bucking bronco.
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
I don't either, Mark. I don't either.
Well,
No.
So on
on that piece of randomness,
yep, we will close this one out. I
right.
appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was an honor.
Thanks for
Yeah.
the conversation, guys.
As always, hit us up on Instagram. Follow the guys at Rise Armament, Dillen Easly too on social media and whatnot. See what they're up to and check out one or the other. If you're a gas gun guy, bolt guns, try it out like Dylan has. Or if you're a bolt gun guy, check out gas guns. And perhaps we've dispelled some misconceptions out there about their accuracy or potential accuracy. And we've coined a new phrase. What was it again?
Practical accuracy. I don't know. It might already exist. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Who knows?
But if not,
Doesn't
I
matter.
made it up.
It's patented. Done.
Yep.
Well, on that note, everybody, goodbye.
Goodbye.
See ya.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. Leave us a review or comment down below. We want to hear what you have to say about the show, maybe what you like, maybe what you didn't like, so that way we can make these podcasts as good as they can be. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'll be posting about each episode released, so that way you can go back, find these things, maybe grab a little nugget of information that you can take with you to the range, out in the field, or maybe to the kitchen if we're talking about some good food. So, again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.